So here, a great example of this actually, where if we were playing deep stacked, I might feel like I had to bet this flop in order to get money in. But now we've only got $230 left in the cap, and I think this guy is not. That's not a fantastic turn card for me. Not so much because I'm worried about him improving to beat me, but just because I think it's making the board scary for the kinds of hands he could have. Not that I'm going to be folding this, but I was kind of worried about. Okay, well that sucks. Um, I was actually most worried about him having. I was expecting him to have like a small pair or something like that, and didn't think it was going to be real likely that he would. That he would want to put a lot of money in. So I thought maybe if I check the flop, I can either induce a bluff from him on the turn, or even like all the hands that are going to pay off a bet on the flop, I'm still going to be able to get them all in by the river anyway. So I want to give him a chance, either to induce or to convince himself that I don't have something. I don't think there's a lot of reason for me to make a move at that flop with so much money already in the pot. And that's a great example of what I was just starting to talk about, which is that in these we've seen this guy's going to call light out of position, so we've got to isolate him now and then, hopefully, just steal pots from him with a continuation bet. There's just not a need to put as much money in pre-flop because you've still got plenty of. You're still going to be able to get the money in by the river no matter what, and I actually like to leave more money behind so that there is still some decision making to do on the turn in the river. This is kind of a nice situation for me. I think I'm not actually going to bet this flop because he just saw me check kings behind on that other flop. So I think it might actually be the case that I'll get at least as much credit for a turn bet as I would for a flop bet. And if he does bet the turn, I think that I can fold. So now I think I have a little bit more information about his hand. And there's also it's also the fact that King High, he's probably not folding anything better than King High here. So when I do bet, I think it's mostly going to be for protection. And now I'm just going to try to check it down. I'm probably not good, but we'll see. Okay, so I was actually good on the turn, and then he rivered a pair. And so this is pretty. Obviously, we can see this is a very loose player. We saw him call for deuce suited, passive with flush draw, calls re-raise with 9-8 suited out of position. Or 10-9 suited, whatever it was. Oh, you can actually see that. Calls re-raise with 10-9 suited out of position. So we can see, that's a pretty fishy player, and that's really just not play that you see much at all at a regular 5-10 game, but in a cap game, we will see it. And these cap games are really very much about leverage, and I think that's the other good thing that you can learn from playing cap games or improve a little bit, particularly if you're a tournament player. And this is actually another way in which cap games are a good transition is if you think of yourself primarily as a tournament player and you want to get into playing cash games, which is also the situation that I was in about a year and a half ago. I think that playing cap games can provide a little bit of that leeway because as a tournament player, you probably already have a pretty good understanding of like pre-flop poker and all-in equity, and maybe even better than some of the cash game players. You understand those things, and that just doesn't come up all that much at the 100 big blind games. But for these 30 big blind games, there's plenty of situations where you're just either getting all the money in pre-flop or there's only enough money to like bet the flop and then someone's check raising all in. That kind of stuff comes up a lot in cap games, and that's a lot of what tournament poker ends up being about. Also, like the mid stakes or the kind of like from the midpoint of a tournament on kind of middle game play in tournaments and even late game play is dealing with stacks that are in the neighborhood of 30 big blinds.